We have some breaking news. Hunter Biden has been found guilty. He is guilty on all 3 counts. Those were 2 counts related to lying on a gun permit, saying he was not a drug user, and then 1 count of possessing a gun while being a drug addict. So that verdict was handed down to President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, just moments ago. Again, this is breaking news. Hunter Biden was accused of illegally purchasing and possessing a gun while abusing or being addicted to drugs. He had pleaded not guilty to those 3 charges, and the defense had argued that there was no direct evidence Hunter was using the drugs during the month that he purchased the gun. The other side, prosecutors had pointed to his memoir, texts, pictures, arguing that his addiction at the time was evident, and that argument evidently carried the day as a jury has convicted him on those 3 charges. So this was hotly anticipated. It was always going to be a difficult case for the defense because it was very straightforward. It is against the law to purchase a gun while addicted to drugs, while using drugs. He had written about his struggles with drug-related activity. There were text messages introduced, ironically from the laptop, which, the infamous Hunter Biden laptop, which was described by so many in the mainstream media as Russian propaganda, and we were initially told to just disregard its contents entirely. That the repair shop story where it was left, that there was something fishy about that. It's years later, and now there has not emerged anything to suggest that it wasn't exactly what it looked like. He did, in fact, leave a laptop at a repair store. The laptop repairman handed that laptop over to Republican strategists who gave it to the New York Post. And so some of that material, text messages, pictures indicating his drug use, was introduced at the trial. There was some verification of a time he was buying drugs outside of a 7-Eleven. He had wanted to argue, I think, that because he'd just gotten out of rehab, he was not an addict at the time he purchased the gun, but the jury was evidently not swayed by that, and I know he was disincluded from an expert who was going to maybe testify to that, was not able to do so. So it's a win for the government's case.
We're getting some reports from what the vibe is like in the courtroom. It turns out Hunter Biden, as the verdict is read, just staring emotionless straight ahead. A sad situation. I'm going to take this as any conservative that's happy about this verdict just loves common sense gun reform. I think it makes sense as a law that you shouldn't be purchasing a firearm while addicted to a drug, while using drugs. Drugs influence your ability to make decisions. They affect your entire perception of reality. It's for your own safety as well to not have a gun. Of course, as a libertarian, maybe you don't like that argument. I think it makes for good legislation. If you're willing to, purchase a gun addicted to drugs, you could hurt yourself, but you could hurt others. And I think that's where maybe it infringes upon their freedom and safety if someone else has a gun.
Sure. I think I believe in and support responsible gun ownership and gun usage. I don't know that I would necessarily prohibit people. Drug addict is a medical. It should be a medical issue, not
Absolutely.
a legal issue. If you're, what did they mean by drug addict? I don't think marijuana should be illegal. I don't think most drugs should be illegal. If you are using drugs, should you be able to buy? If you're wildly out of control, flailing in the streets from drug addiction and mental illness, as we see some people on the streets of our major cities are, yes, you should not be able to purchase a gun. If you're using dangerous and mind-altering chemicals in public, we don't want to have you having a gun, absolutely. And also, whatever the law is, it should be applied equally to Hunter Biden. It should not be that privileged and politically powerful and connected people get exceptions to gun and drug laws, especially, that no one else gets, that people get, the book thrown at them for minor drug infractions they're not harming anyone. They're just using, sometimes even in the privacy of their own home, getting their, doors kicked in by federal authorities. That's probably an area where you and I would even agree. I should note additionally that the potential sentence for Hunter Biden here is up to 25 years in prison. That would be a very, very, very unlikely sentence for a first-time offender. It is likely considerable leniency will be given. However, it'll be up to the legal system to work that out. Remember that he was offered a plea deal at one point, and then the judge actually took the plea deal out of consideration because the plea deal was too good. It was too favorable to Hunter Biden. It would have precluded federal investigators potentially from looking into, from investigating the more serious matters involving the Biden family, which include, the accusations of the influence peddling and all of that, which are more important for public policy. I mean, I don't think anyone, this doesn't matter from a who's going to be the president standpoint. It matters that the law be followed as the way it is and that exceptions are not granted to important and famous people. At the same time, it's not a particularly serious issue. Honestly, throwing the gun away, which is what Haley Biden, his brother's widow who he was dating at the time, she just threw the gun in the trash, which is improper disposal of a gun. That is a bad. She's not being prosecuted for that. I'm not saying she should be, but that is just as reckless behavior as purchasing the gun at the time
Biden
he did.
Is giving a speech now. He's talking about whether or not he's going to pardon the son. Oh, in 2 hours, sorry. Biden will be giving a speech. He's going to hopefully be addressing what's happened here in the courts.
Interesting.
And we're going to hear about whether or not he will be pardoning Hunter Biden.
Interesting. That will be something to listen to. Yeah, it's a gun safety conference in 2 hours, we're learning, where Joe Biden will be speaking. It would surprise me very much if he were to pardon Hunter Biden. I would bet strongly against that. The optics of doing that would be just very, very, very bad. And also, he's going to wait. He's certainly, if he's going to do it, he's not going to do it today. He's going to wait till see what the sentence is. I mean, if the sentence was 25 years, yes, he might feel compelled. I mean, he'll feel compelled to do it the day after the election.
We're getting now that he said publicly he will not pardon him.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm sure we're going to hear more about this from Biden. That's, very interesting coming out of the president. I wonder what anyone else would do in that position. It's family. I think about, my family members who are addicts. If they were ever in a situation where, they were using drugs, they purchased a firearm for safety, thinking about it from a compassionate perspective, which many Americans will be watching this verdict, hopefully, given that 20% of the country is affected by addiction. I'm very curious, how conservatives who have family members affected by addiction will react to something like this, because we do have the safety concerns, right? You don't want to put other people in jeopardy. That's why this law is in place. But I think a lot of people are reflecting on the fact that a maximum sentence of 25 years, first-time offenders don't get that. But that's a hefty sentence for, something that should be treated for what it is, a sickness.
For sure. So many people know someone, we all know someone who struggled with drug addiction or mental illness and the toll that takes. And again, I absolutely want to deal with it in a medical way, not a criminal way. At the same time, and I can turn this back on liberals who every time there's a shooting or a mass shooting go, well, how did that person get a gun? And then we find out there was some kind of track record. There was they could have been and ought to have been stopped or prosecuted. And the reason is that some of these things just get let go. So you can't simultaneously say, oh, well, this isn't a big deal. He shouldn't have been prosecuted at all. And then say, why didn't anyone do anything or stop this in all these other cases? Are we gonna enforce our laws or not? And some of our laws, I think they should not be laws. I think they should just be changed. But we ought to enforce the laws we have. We should enforce the laws that we have, but the laws should, make sense and should be reformed if they don't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we will continue to follow Hunter Biden developments. Absolutely. If we have more news, we'll bring that to you. Stay tuned for more Rising right after this.